Hello, my name is Christopher McAllister. I am a firefighter and a paramedic in the state of Texas. I am making this video in the hopes of bringing to light a situation that presents as a danger to first responders, specifically firefighters and EMS personnel. Sadly, when violence approaches, most firefighters and most EMTs in the state of Texas have little recourse in which to defend themselves, aside from attempting to outrun a bullet. I've spent several years working to change the law in Texas so that first responders would be able to carry a concealed weapon while on duty in order to protect themselves. I recently found myself in a very frightening situation. My partner's wife sought out and hired a hitman, more than one in fact, to kill him while on duty. She has since been caught and pled guilty, and the evidence points to the line of duty death benefits as her motive. While I am certainly not okay with harm befalling my partner under any circumstances, it occurred to me rather quickly that not only was my partner in jeopardy, but as was I and the remainder of our crew. For obvious reasons, this situation brought to the forefront of my mind my mortality. It also brought to the forefront of my mind my inability to defend myself in the event that somebody wants to visit harm upon me. Afterwards, I began to look into how often fire and EMS personnel are subjected to violence. I found that the occurrence of violence perpetrated toward first responders is not only significant, but also significantly on the rise, especially in terms of the severity of the assaults. Once upon a time, somebody might take a swing at you. At this point, people are pulling out weapons and attempting to do greater injury. In just the last couple of years, 4 firefighters were shot and 2 were killed in New York in December of 2012. 4 months later, 4 firefighters were taken hostage in Sewanee, Georgia in April of 2013, where a SWAT standoff ensued, and so the SWAT team elected to raid the house and had to take out the perpetrator as they felt that the perpetrator was going to kill those firemen. Shortly thereafter, in July, an Omaha, Nebraska firefighter paramedic was shot by a patient that he was transporting to the hospital. And just last month, in December of 2014, several firefighters were standing outside of the station in Jacksonville, Florida, when someone pulled up and opened fire, striking one of them. Clearly, the threat is very real. I would like to get into exactly what I am proposing, and afterwards I will address some of the myths or misunderstood portions of my proposal. The bill that I have proposed would remove the ability of first responder employing agencies to prohibit the carry of a concealed firearm while on duty. I recognize that employers would have concerns about liability and firefighters would have concerns about safety in the implementation of this law, and I have endeavored to address these concerns in my proposal. Number 1, I would like to propose that first responders be permitted to exercise their Second Amendment rights while on duty by removing the employer's ability to infringe upon that right. Currently, the state of Texas allows first responders to carry, but it also allows the employer to restrict or prohibit us, as first responders, from exercising that right. Number 2, I propose increased training requirements, estimated at about 40 hours curriculum, at the candidate's expense. This curriculum would include training in de-escalation techniques, how to talk your way out of a situation so that that gun is much further down the line, the last tool in the toolbox. Tactical thinking, how to recognize that a situation is dangerous before it escalates to the point that there is no other option. Cover and concealment of both person and weapon, how to keep that weapon hidden, and how to move in the event that a situation goes badly, how to get yourself into a place where you can be protected. Consequences of improper use. The sole purpose for us having the right to carry a concealed firearm while on duty is to protect ourselves and to defend ourselves as citizens, not to make a point because we are angry that somebody called for this, that, or the other reason. Finally, small arms training. Firearm safety, instinctive shooting, tactical shooting, low-light shooting, shooting and moving, and shoot-don't-shoot drills, also known as Hogan's Alley. How to recognize what is and is not a threat, what is and is not a target, and when it is or is not safe to engage that target. Number 3, currently Texas laws prohibit carrying of a concealed weapon in several specific locations. These exceptions to CHL rights should not be affected by the on-duty CHL endorsement if the card carrier is off-duty. While on duty, the on-duty CHL endorsement should supersede location restrictions. This would include schools, hospitals, bars, etc., places of worship. These restrictions were once federally mandated. The Supreme Court ruling in the United States versus Lopez, a case that began here in Texas, showed that the states have the right to set where and by whom those restrictions can be set or abandoned. In other words, the state decides who can and cannot carry, and when or where they can and cannot carry. The exceptions to that rule would be federal and foreign installations. This is where the U.S. versus Lopez ruling would not be applicable. In essence, federal buildings still fall under the purview of the federal government. And foreign installations, this would not include consulates, it would specifically include foreign embassies, as a foreign embassy is considered foreign soil. For these rare possibilities, and in addition, fire responses, or jails, a secure location would need to be provided for storage of a firearm in the apparatus. A cursory search of the internet found that these lockboxes can be purchased for $40, a small price to pay. Number 4, agency or municipality limitations of liability. I recognize that there would be concerns on the part of an employing agency or a municipality to permit us to carry, because the way the law is currently written, that municipality would be liable for our actions while on duty, and that would not be proper. Language should grant municipalities immunity or indemnify the municipality or the agency that employs the first responder from civil liability, provided that they adequately provide for our protection to a reasonable level. In the event that they have provided for our protection and we have found ourselves in a bad situation, the municipality would not be liable. There are, however, exceptions to this rule. Negligently failing to reasonably provide for first responder protection would no longer protect or keep indemnified the city or the employing agency. Examples would include failure to send law enforcement on a known dangerous situation, failure to send law enforcement assistance in a timely manner when on-scene units request help, how long it takes for the police or the sheriff's department to arrive is not at issue here. It's how long does it take to get them on the way, to advise them that we have first responders in need of assistance. And finally, failure to provide accurate, available information to responding units. To send a fire truck, to send an ambulance to a shooting, a known shooting, and dispatch it as an unconscious person would be unacceptable, and the department would then be liable for whatever occurs on that incident. Recognizing that this is a dangerous situation and advising those units beforehand would then again limit the liability or indemnify the city or the employing agency. I'd like to point out that Texas law already provides for a line of delineation between first responders and the general public in Texas Law 30.05, criminal trespass. According to this law, 30.05, a person is criminally trespassing unless the person is a firefighter or EMS person acting in the lawful discharge of an official duty. Finally, I would like to address some of the myths or misunderstandings in what I've proposed. Number 1, the employing agency is not required to provide a firearm to any member under this bill. Number 2, the employing agency is not required to pay for the training of any member under this bill. Number 3, exercising your Second Amendment right is in no way mandated by the bill. It is simply made available if the person chooses to. This bill will not require anybody to carry. It will make it available. Each individual department will come up with their own SOPs, but it will be at the discretion of the individual to decide if they are going to carry with regard to the bill itself. Number 4, and I want to address this for a second time to make it clear, an on-duty CHL carrier would not be permitted expanded rights to carry when off-duty. In other words, when off-duty, your on-duty CHL would revert to being exactly the same as a standard CHL. Ergo, while off duty, you could not carry in a bar, you could not carry in a hospital, etc. Number 5. I've heard many people say, well, we all know that one guy who shouldn't be allowed to carry. To that I reply this way. Number 1, CHL holders have an extraordinarily low propensity to commit crime, and specifically to commit violent crime. Additionally, if they are going to pursue an on-duty CHL, they are probably already carrying, because you have to have a CHL in order to apply. They are probably already carrying off-duty, and have yet to abuse that right, or they would have already had their CHL revoked. So either the individual does not have a CHL, and is therefore not eligible for an on-duty CHL, or they have a CHL and have handled that responsibility properly. Number 6, state law supersedes city policy. Ergo, this would thus allow the concealed carry of a weapon regardless of city policy. Finally, in closing, I'd like to invite anyone in the state of Texas to contact me if they have any questions. I'd also be happy to help anyone who sees the same need in their own state. I can be reached at txodchl@gmail.com. Thank you for your time.